Hi, I'm Kevin America, and today we're going to learn a new verb tense. Today we're going to learn about the future perfect. Now, if you have already watched the lesson on present perfect, and if you already have watched the lesson on past perfect, then the future perfect will be very easy for you to understand. So let's look. We've got a future, which is spelled incorrectly. We've got a future perfect. Okay, so let's talk about how to make a future perfect. You'll remember that a perfect tense must have two things. Must have, right? Plus verb 3. Must have plus verb 3. So what is verb 3? Do you remember? Today I walk, yesterday I walked, and I have walked. Okay. Verb 1, walk. Verb 2, walked. Verb 3, walked. How about show? Today I show, yesterday I showed, and I have shown. See? I have shown. What about I fly, I flew, I have flown. I drive, I drove, I have driven. Great. Okay, let's do one more. Today I eat, yesterday I ate, and I have... That's right, eaten. I have eaten. Okay, now this is our verb 3. Must have plus verb 3 to make a perfect. But wait a minute. This is a future perfect. Have is not the future tense. How do we make a future tense of have? Remember, two things. Will, be going to. Will, be going to. Same thing. I will have, or I am going to have. So will, or let's will have, or be going to have. But I don't say be, really, right? I don't say I be a teacher. Oh, this pizza be delicious. No. What is it? So she is going to have walked, right? I am going to have shown. And of course, they are going to have driven. Just so you know, you can use either one. I will have driven and I am going to have driven is the same thing. It means the same thing. Will, be going to. Okay? So now we know how to make it. Let's talk about how we use it. But first, let's remember a very, very important rule in time clauses, okay? Very important rule in time clauses. And we're going to make this rule in purple because it is unusual. It is unique. Now, we're going to be using time clauses in our perfect, right? And rule number 1, no future in time clauses. No future in time clauses. That is for real. So what do we mean by that? What does that mean? No future in time clauses. What is a time clause? Let's remember what a time clause is. Number one thing, when I say when blah, 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 right? When she arrives at home, okay? When she arrives is in the future, even though we say arrives, because we don't use future in time clauses. So if you see when something happens, then you know that when clause is a time clause, and you can never use a future. You can never say when she will arrive. So let's look at, so what are some other words to look out for? To be careful, here comes a time clause. Okay, how about while? Or, check this one out. By the time, one of my favorites. By the time she arrives. By the time we drive. Not by the time we will drive. You can never say by the time we will. Doesn't happen. By the time we drive, how about before and after? Before this happens and after we go. As soon as. That's a good one too. As soon as I put on my shoes. I haven't put on my shoes. I will put on my shoes. That's a perfectly good thing to say. I will put on my shoes. But I can't say as soon as I will put on my shoes. Nope. Must use a present tense. As soon as I put, before we go. How about if and unless? You can use if or unless. Unless it rains later. If it rains tomorrow. Now we're talking about a future, but we can never use the future tense. We just have to use a present tense. Tomorrow, if it rains. Okay? Good, okay. Now we remember no future in time clauses. Let's learn how to use this wonderful future perfect tense. Beep. Now, the first thing we're going to do is draw a timeline, right? We have to know when things are happening. So, this is now, right? Here is the past, and we go into the future. That's our timeline. Now, we're going to call this first use. We have two uses for the future perfect, and we're going to call this first use a completed action before a future event, whatever that event is. So let's start with the future event, right? It hasn't happened yet. It will happen. It is going to happen. That future event is over here. Now, this is now, and that is the future. So there it is. There's our future event. Now, how do we talk about something that happened or is happening or will happen before that future event? Let's look. Sometime before that future event, something will have happened. Remember, we made it will have happened. So maybe it already happened. I don't know. Maybe it hasn't happened yet. It will happen before that other future event, sometime before then. Maybe it's happening right now and therefore will happen before that future event. I don't know. But let's make a few examples so we can learn how to use a future perfect. Here we have two perfectly good examples. Check it out. By the time she arrives, that's the blue X. You see it's in blue. That's the future event. She will arrive in the future, right? She will arrive. She hasn't arrived yet, but she will. By the time she arrives, I will have cleaned the dishes. Maybe I cleaned the dishes already, so now I know for sure they're already clean. Now I know for sure by the time she arrives, I will have cleaned the dishes. Or maybe I haven't cleaned the dishes. It's not in the past. Maybe I'm cleaning them right now. I'm cleaning the dishes. So that way I know by the time she arrives in the future, I will have cleaned them. You see? There, let's look at another one. Pardon, s'il vous plaît, this must be they. Okay, now here what you'll notice is I put the future perfect first. Instead of by the time she arrives, I will have cleaned. This time, I will have cleaned comes first. So they are going to have danced. So they are going to have danced before the party ends. So the blue X is where the party ends. That's going to happen in the future, not yet. But before the party ends in the future, they are going to have danced. That's how you have a past in the future. Put yourself into the future and then think about the past from there. Maybe it's the present. Maybe it's the past. Maybe it's even the future, but still the past from that future. You see? All right. Now let's look at use number 2 for a future perfect. This one is interesting. This one we're going to call duration. Duration means how much time does it take? How long a time is this? Okay. We're going to say Duration before a future event. Okay? Duration before a future event. Once again, let's make a timeline. Okay, this is now. There we are. Hi! We're right now. Now this is the past, and we go into the future. So once again, we've got a future event. So let's start with that. Okay, there it is. And it's in the future, whatever that is. It hasn't happened yet. It will happen. And now let's talk about something that takes some time to do, but it will complete by the time or by this future event. So it begins maybe here, who knows? But it begins in the past from that future. Okay? Let's do some examples of this duration before a future event. All right? All right, let's look at some examples. So, they are going to have driven the car for hours, for 5 hours, right? So here we're stating how long that time is. What is the duration of their driving the car? So they are going to have driven the car for 5 hours before the trip ends. The blue X is where the trip ends, but before that. So when is now? Who knows? Maybe we're just beginning the trip and we've got 5 hours of driving before the trip ends. Maybe we have been driving for 3 hours and we've got 2 hours to go, so we will have been driving for 5 hours, right? Maybe now we're already 3 hours into the trip, and the trip began in the past, but by the time the trip ends or before the trip ends, the total will be 5 hours. So let's look at the next example. Let's look at the next example. We will have studied for hours by dinner. So now we're looking by, which is a time. The blue X is dinner, which should be blue. Let me change that. Doobie doobie beep beep. Okay, by dinner. Okay, so the blue X is dinner, and this red is we will have studied, right? Or are going to have studied. Will be going to, same thing. So we will have studied for hours by dinner. Hopefully we'll be very smart. Good. Super easy, right? Here we've got the future perfect tense. Okay, first we've got a completed action before an event in the future, and that action may have been completed any time before that event. So by the time she arrives, I will have cleaned the dishes. Or they are going to have danced before the party ends. Maybe they haven't danced yet, but we know that they will. They are going to have danced before the party ends. Or we can use this same idea, but we can talk about how long it took. They are going to have driven the car for 5 hours before the trip ends. Remember, no future in time clauses, so before the trip not will end, but ends. We will have studied for hours by dinner. Good. Easy, right? I'm Kevin America, and thank you for having a great class.